Welcome back to Scarlet and Maize. I'm Adam.
I'm Zack.
How you doing?
All right.
Good.
Yeah.
The less interesting of the two games, we'll start off with Michigan 52, Minnesota 10. Just a few fun stats for you. So Michigan just finished their 6th game of the year and has allowed 8 red zone drives all season. I'm not sure how many of those 8 were even against the starting defense, so asterisk by the 8, but the good kind of asterisk. Michigan's regular season is now half over, but Michigan's starting offense has one fourth quarter drive this season, which was to end the Rutgers game, a 7-minute drive that ended up kneeling in the red zone or close to the red zone, whatever. Michigan's starting defense has scored more touchdowns, 3, than they've given up all year, 2. Michigan's starting defense has given up 23 total points, but has 21 points scored themselves, and has had 0 plays run on them inside the 10-yard line this entire season so far. So Minnesota ran the ball 8 times for 47 yards in the first quarter, 5.9 yards per carry. I was a little frustrated, even though they weren't scoring. They were just moving the ball a little bit. Then some adjustments were made. 12 carries for 23 yards in the second quarter. That's 1.9 yards per carry. And then 8 carries for 7 yards in the third. That's 0.9 yards per carry before the backups came in. It's honestly just kind of tough because all the teams Michigan has played are pretty bad, but I also do think Michigan is also really good. It's a both and type of thing. But there's also, there's only so much to say. So Michigan is still in possession of every rivalry trophy that they play for, including just the title of, the victors in the game. That's cool. All I got.
Cool. Yeah, Michigan looks good. Minnesota is not a great team. Obviously after that Northwestern game, I changed my opinion on them. But, yeah, PJ Fleck had high praise for them, saying that they're the best team he's ever coached against. So, yeah, Michigan looks good. Yeah.
Ohio State 37, Maryland 17.
Yeah, so I think at this point, so I've said for a while, people are like, oh, you're worried about replacing the quarterback? Are you worried about the issues with the defense? And I was like, my biggest concern this year is the offensive line. I kept saying it all offseason. My biggest worry this year is replacing the offensive tackles that they lost. And that has been the biggest issue so far is the offensive line. They haven't done well at getting to the second level and run blocking. They've given up a decent amount of sacks and pressure on McCord, and yeah, the O-line just needs to all around play better. I think I'd like to see them give some of the young guys a chance. Like Fryer's a senior at right tackle, and we've got the 5-star Montgomery, who I would like to see even give him a chance, but see what he can do. But it's 5 games in the season. It's not something they can't fix. But other than that, I thought the defense played great. They gave up a touchdown early after that botched punt, but other than that, they gave up 10 points to Maryland, who has a respectable offense. So I thought they played really well. Michael Hall Jr. looked like a beast out there, just juking offensive linemen, and just he'd be a scary guy to be running at you if you're a quarterback. But I loved Marv balling out. And then he's doing some basketball recruiting after one of his touchdowns with the LeBron celebration, the silencer, while Bryce James is visiting. But yeah, I thought the game looked like a back and forth battle for a little while, but then Ohio State
going into the fourth.
Right, Ohio State was obviously the way better team, and I think it was just a few adjustments and a few fluky plays that made it seem like it was close. But I think Ohio State dominated this game overall, but that O-line's got to get it together.
To your point about the run blocking and the offensive line, Chip Trayanum had 20 carries. I don't know why. So he had 20. Mayan Williams had 6. Just like Chip Trayanum, I think, is a good running back. He would have looked really good in Ann Arbor, I think. But giving him 20 carries and Mayan Williams only 6 while Henderson was out was weird. But I think the real story is that Trayanum only averaged 3.1 yards per carry And Ohio State as a whole was even worse at 1.9 yards per carry.
Yeah.
And that's against Maryland. So going backwards, Indiana averaged 3.1 yards per carry against Maryland, Michigan State 3.3, Virginia 3.0, and Charlotte 3.7. And then the best for last, they opened at Townsend 4.4, Towson. How was Ohio State worse than every one of those awful teams by over a yard per carry?
Yeah.
That's,
well,
I mean,
I would consider the factor that Travion wasn't playing, and I think that they still can't get. I feel like they run those stretch zones a lot still, and I feel like it works better with Travion. But then Mayan and Chip seem more like gap running backs to me, and I feel like they should just do gap run plays and just hit the hole, and then everybody knows. Get to the second level.
You think it's less of a player issue and more of a coaching issue?
No, I think it's a little bit of both. Like the O-line needs to get to the second level. Like they were showing clips of it during the game. The commentators were talking about it like it was bad. They were not getting to the second level at all. And then even the defensive line was giving them fits. But I do think they might have averaged a little bit more if Travion was there. They might have averaged a little bit more if they gave some more gap carries opposed to the zone runs. But yeah, I don't know. I think the offensive line is some serious concern. Like they can beat teams like Maryland without running the ball. Like it's Ohio State. Like they pass the ball just as good as anybody in the country. Like they can beat a lot of teams not running the ball. But I think it's going to come down to those big games that they got to figure out those.
I mean, it does seem like they've been running it more than they have under Ryan Day for sure, but more than Ohio State has in a while. At least since they've had like a run first quarterback type thing.
So since like JT Barrett.
Yeah, but so Ohio State only has 9 passing touchdowns through 5 full games this year, and that's with Kyle McCord playing nearly every single snap. Like, this isn't a shot at Ohio State, but J.J. McCarthy has played 1 series in a fourth quarter this entire season so far. Kyle McCord's been in the whole time. They still only have 9 passing touchdowns through 5 games. That's the fewest since 2012 under Luke Fickell when they had 7.
I don't know, like passing touchdowns is a silly stat because there's probably a handful of drives where they threw the ball and got down to the 1 yard line, and then the game-winning touchdown run against Notre Dame was after we passed the whole drive and then ran it in.
And they tried to pass it first, but
but then they ran it in, yeah. But drives like that, where they might have just happened to hand it off that play. Like I don't think the passing game is a concern at all in my opinion. I don't think only having 9 passing touchdowns through this many games is a concern. He split snaps in those first couple games, and they've played a little bit tougher of a schedule than Michigan.
Well, they split snaps, but it was like. It wasn't 50-50, right?
But it's also a lot less drives this year. Like I think the clock rule is a factor in that stat too. Like, I mean they've had probably. I'm curious how many less drives they've had through 5 games, compared to previous years.
I've seen too many seasons. The PTSD is not completely gone. Like I've seen too many seasons where Ohio State looks completely beatable. And then just looks like a friggin' juggernaut the last week of November. Like, they could get stuff together. Things could click. They took Kyle McCord over J.J. McCarthy. But he was high school teammates with Marv.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if his high ranking has more to do with Marv than it does with him. I'm not saying he's bad. But he was he was around a 5-star, right? He may have been a 5-star. He was right up there. But, I feel like you could throw to Marvin Harrison Jr. and get recruited.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've jokingly said that Ohio State needs to start worrying. But the fact that Maryland should have had a 3-point lead going into halftime, if it wasn't for Talia apparently inheriting Tua's concussed brain for a day.
Oh, my goodness.
Seriously, I was watching, and he throws that pass, and I was just by myself. I go, what are you doing?
The pick 6?
No. At the end of the half, there's 6 seconds left, and he throws it short.
Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy.
I
as soon as he threw it, I was like, that was a huge mistake.
I was like, do they have a timeout I don't know about? I looked at the... Nope. They just... Whatever. But then, so they would have gone up by 10 early in the third quarter instead of 7. And that may have changed... That may have rattled Ohio State more than just being down 7. 7 is like, oh, we can score and whatever.
Yeah.
Just throw it up to Marv. 10, and you're suddenly worried about if they're going to score again because you got to get a stop.
Yeah.
I'm not saying...
And Maryland got the ball to start the second half.
Well, that's what I mean. They went up by 7 to start the second half when it could have been 10. It could have been a 2-possession game.
Well, then they had the ball to start the second half. Like, they could have gone up 10, then they would have got the ball back to start the second half and would have
No.
again.
They would have kicked the field goal to go up by 3 before second half.
Oh, it was tied?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I
so it was 10-10 at half.
Halftime. Yeah. I thought you were saying they were already up by 7. I didn't remember or not.
Yeah, but like I said, I still have PTSD of trusting my eyes when I watch an Ohio State team struggle. But I think the unimpressive, not all of them have been unimpressive, and sometimes they pull away, but particularly the first halves of some of these games are stacking up. Like, I don't think Notre Dame's a top 10 team.
Yeah, they're not now.
I don't know if they're a top 15 team.
But it's still, even if they're just a top 20 team, it's tough to win on the road, especially a team that has a fan base like Notre Dame. Like,
Sam Hartman maybe looked like he belonged in the fan base and not under center in that game. I said last week that I thought Ohio State Notre Dame reminded me of a lighter version of Michigan Notre Dame, like with Denard and all those, where the winner would vault up the rankings, and I said the winner of that game kept being really mediocre, but I didn't think Ohio State was mediocre. Notre Dame looks less impressive than that game first looked. Definite bowl team Indiana is probably not making a bowl. And they just fired their offensive coordinator. I get excited thinking about, because it's not just one game. Like 2018, Maryland almost beat Ohio State if it weren't for a friggin' drop pass on a 2-point conversion. But this is multiple games where at least they start really slow. I don't know. Like I said, they could get it together, and McCord could just realize he needs to throw to Marv no matter what every single play.
Well, I don't even think it's that. I think if they figure out, I think even with the offensive line issues, they could beat anyone in the country, especially this year. No one looks like they're crazy good. Georgia struggled with teams, and Georgia, obviously they blew out Kentucky last week, but Michigan has even struggled to run the ball at times against really bad teams. I don't know. So I think Ohio State has the capability, even with the offensive line issues right now, to beat anyone in the country. I think if they figure out those offensive line issues, it's a good shot they win it all. I think that defense is a lot better than people think. I think that defense is legit this year, and until I'm proved otherwise, I'm going to roll with that. Like last year, I was proved otherwise in the game. I think I won't be proved otherwise this year, and they'll be in every game that they play just because of that defense and Marvin Harrison Jr. And
okay,
yeah.
Scarlett and May's pick standings. I went 6-2, really 5-2, but then I got the bonus point because I was closer in our loss in the game of the week. 48-7 overall. That's 87%. You were 6-1 this week. 47-11 overall. 81%. I was hoping to expand my lead to 10%, and it shrunk a little bit. But they're still this week. We got a few viewer questions this week. Any thoughts on the 2024 Big Ten schedule that got released? I'll let you go first.
I didn't really look at it a ton, to be honest. I know you were complaining about it in a group chat, but it's easy to look ahead and think oh shoot, we have to play Washington, we have to play USC, or we have to play Oregon. Those 3 teams are top 10 teams right now. But in 2024, most likely all 3 of them will have a new quarterback, and I just don't know if it'll necessarily be the same as this year. If you play Washington and play Oregon, it might not be that tough of a schedule, because without Penix, is Washington really that good?
I understand that. I'd also rather play from a win probability perspective, I would rather play Northwestern than Washington's third string quarterback.
Well, yeah, so would you rather play Rutgers 11 times and play Ohio State for the 12th game of the season?
If it meant Michigan got into the playoff and had a chance to win the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it is the first year of the 12 games, or the 12-team playoff. However, there's seeding involved, so you could still make it and then have a terrible seed.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts on it. You've heard a lot of the thoughts on it, but I'll just say this. Michigan has 6 games against currently ranked teams. The SEC still only plays 8 total conference games. That's the most frustrating thing to me, is Michigan has this crazy schedule. Thanks a lot, Big Ten. While the SEC is playing teams like Towson week 12. They're playing teams like Vanderbilt as part of the regular rotation. Georgia and Alabama never, ever play each other in the regular season. Like, the SEC is doing what they do to try to get as many teams ranked highly as possible.
See,
the Big Ten is like, well, let's get ready for the playoff when not all the teams are going to make the playoff as a result.
Yeah. My thing about all that is, like, if my team's really good enough to win the national championship, like, or be like maybe they're the best team in the country that year, it's gonna play itself out. Like, especially with the 12-team playoff coming, like, I think it'll play itself out. Like, whether maybe they'll drop a game against USC that they're playing in Southern California, but then they win out. Like, I mean, just especially with the 12-team playoff, I think you can lose and still win a national championship pretty easily if you're the best team in the country.
I mean, I think
you could.
I was going to say once, but I think because I don't know that it's a when question. If the SEC scheduling nuts up and actually does something anywhere close to equivalent to this, I think they'll have more losses, and I think there'll be way fewer seasons where anyone goes undefeated.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it is frustrating that the Big Ten came out with this, and Michigan plays 6 currently ranked teams, and Ohio State was at 3. But, I mean, hopefully Michigan makes it. Just win probability, right? Like, just because you play a hard team doesn't mean you're going to lose. But if you play 6 hard games instead of 2 hard games, the odds that you drop 1 to 2 games goes up.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think even if you play 6 ranked teams, there's a chance you could drop 2 of them and still make the playoffs.
I mean, we'll have to see
like 2 teams,
how quality loss stuff comes into play too.
2 lost teams
with whatever committee.
2 lost teams will make a 12-team playoffs.
Yeah,
We've been close to it at times.
But currently, for the most part, wins over bad teams are better than losses over good teams.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Michigan's just in a position to have losses to good teams.
But
instead of playing an SEC schedule where Michigan could play Maryland every year, who they always beat. They could play Rutgers every year, Indiana every year. And instead they're playing USC and UCLA. So
I think a good example of like a 2-loss team that has a really tough schedule that if the 12-team playoff was this year, could realistically make the playoffs that already has 2 losses is Notre Dame. Notre Dame lost against Ohio State.
I don't think they're going to finish with 2
Right, yeah, I don't think they'll finish with 2 losses, but they did have a really tough schedule, and if maybe they could have pulled it off against Louisville, then they'd still have to play USC. Maybe they lost to USC and lost to Ohio State. That's 2 teams that are probably going to be in the top 10 at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I think that if they would have pulled it off against Louisville, then dropped it against USC, went 10-2, like Notre Dame would make the playoffs in a 12-team league with that.
Yeah.
With those 2 losses, and they partly because they played a really tough schedule.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get like my thing isn't that Michigan plays 6 currently ranked teams. My thing is that the scheduling, even in conference, but especially among other conferences, just isn't even.
Yeah.
Like the NFL, okay, so we're going to go to a more NFL thing. That's what they kept saying about Michigan's schedule. It's more of an NFL every week, you got to be on, whatever. But not every team has that.
Right. Yeah, I think I do agree, like, it needs to be more uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think having some conferences with 8 games, some conferences with 9 games, and some conferences have divisions, some conferences don't. I think.
Is the SEC going to have divisions next year?
I don't think so.
Hmm.
I don't think so. Maybe they do. I don't know.
I bet Alabama and Georgia hardly ever play the Big 12 schools.
Yeah.
Is Quinn Ewers' haircut the reason for Zack's haircut?
Quinn Ewers is the reason I do anything at all. So.
That's fair. I just said 100%, by the way.
Cool.
Why is no one talking about Michigan's O-line having 0 penalties through 5 games? It's because it doesn't fit the narrative that Michigan gets screwed by the officials. So that's why. Really, I think it's just because Michigan is winning by a lot against all bad teams, and they're playing super short games. I don't know. Like, officiating is rarely awful enough to cause a blowout. So maybe they've missed holds. I don't really care. They've been blowouts the whole time.
They're more likely to miss holds than to call hold that wasn't a hold. To call hold that wasn't a hold.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just put I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. First time I heard of it was this question, so I don't know why nobody's talking about it.
I just can't wait for that, like they always say, water finds the level, like law of averages and stuff. Michigan's going to play against Penn State and get called for like 15 holds.
Probably.
Friggin' officiating.
They're not going to be able to block Michael Hall Jr., JTT, and
JTT got a sack.
Yeah.
That's sweet. Big Ten takeaways.
I don't have any.
Oh, nice.
I don't nothing really changed this last week. I think I don't know if I'll have a Big Ten takeaway until Ohio State and Penn State play.
Yeah.
I think the Big Ten at this point.
This will be one of the benefits of harder schedules for some of the teams.
Right. Yeah.
You could have had this one. We both called it to varying degrees, but Wisconsin is first in the Big Ten West, Iowa's second, and then 4 teams are at 1 and 2 before Illinois at 0 and 3.
Yeah, that was a little bit That one's a little bit surprising. Illinois being at the bottom.
I don't remember who I picked last. Northwestern.
Yeah,
it was definitely Northwestern.
Definitely Northwestern. Then I picked Purdue after that because I knew both of them.
Man,
we're having new head coaches. We're interim head coaches, and
yeah,
I think I picked Purdue right after that.
Wisconsin, alone atop the Big Ten West standings, like I said, has 62 points scored in 2 league games. That would be 4th most in the Big Ten East, behind Michigan, Penn State, and Maryland.
I knew he was going to.
Ohio State, having played the 2-team gauntlet of top defenses known as Indiana and Maryland, has 60 points. I just think that's hilarious. It's not that's just another thing of is this Ohio State team different? Is this not actual Ohio State? Because it seems like they're not doing Ohio State things. I remember I would watch the Michigan game, go out to dinner with my wife, and the Ohio State game would be on. I can just picture one time at the lovely Outback Steakhouse, sponsor us, and I looked up at the TV, and every time I looked, Ohio State had scored again, and they scored 70 in a league game, and I was like, this is terrible. I don't want to watch this anymore. Please change the channel. And that is not really happening. They had one game where they scored a lot.
We're 2 games into league play, and
and they're behind a lot more teams than they would normally be behind. I said they could get things fixed, but
yeah,
this is just fun at this point. Hopefully they don't ruin my life later in November. One step further take. So not really a hot take, but definitely not a cold take. What do you got?
Well, mine is if Ohio State doesn't make changes or just improve in the run blocking, they won't beat Penn State or Michigan. And my level of concern with the O-line is probably a 7.
This is the first time I've ever heard you actually concerned with Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, it's rough out there. If you can't get the run game going against Maryland, are you going to be able to get the run game going against Michigan? And are you going to be able to win the game if you can't put the game away with the run game? I don't know. It's
the thing is too, Maryland wasn't selling out to stop the run. It was linebackers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know why they didn't just triple team Marv every play, but whatever.
Maybe Michigan will, other than that. Yeah.
I mean, Michigan has better corners than Maryland too, but
do they?
Will Johnson. My one step further take previously was that Ohio State would lose at least 1 game in the month of October. I'm assuming Ohio State sneaks past Purdue, who leads the Big Ten West with 75 points scored in 3 games. But Penn State is going to win in Columbus by multiple scores next week. That's my
funny.
one step further take.
I feel like I feel like that's a really hot take. The one step further take would just be saying that Penn State would beat Ohio State. Oh, I guess you're taking your one step further take one step further.
Yeah.
So you did make it a hot take.
I don't know that it's that hot of a take at this point.
Multiple scores?
It could be 10.
I guess.
14.
It could be 9.
I don't think it'll be 29. I don't know. I said 29, not 28. I don't think it's going to be like a blowout. But if Penn State somehow gets up, which I'm still not 100% sold on Drew Aller being good.
I think
being very good. If Ohio State can't run the ball, but then they really can't run the ball, and Penn State, who has good corners, they have a good defense, can just focus on Cade Stover and Marv and just say, okay, Julian Fleming beat us? I don't know.
Well, I don't know how long. I don't know. I haven't seen any updates on Ibuka's injury, but are you just forgetting about Ibuka, one of the best wide receivers in the country? Mm-hmm. Just completely forgot about him?
I did forget about him. Penn State has, I'm gonna say this, the second best defense Ohio State will face to Michigan. They probably have a better secondary.
Probably the third best defense they play all season, because they have to play Ohio State's defense in practice every day.
Okay. I wish I would have seen Ohio State down by 10 and how they would have responded.
I think Ohio State is more likely to blow a lead against Penn State than to not be able to come back against. Penn
that's
State.
fair too, because they can't run.
Right. Yeah. I think.
Oh my gosh. I think I'm feeling good about this pick. I mean, I feel like Penn State is going to beat Ohio State.
Put some money on it.
I might. I probably won't because PTSD about Ohio State.
I think Ohio State wins that game by like 30.
Oh.
I'm just kidding.
That would be such a kick in the balls.
52-21. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Watch it be that score right now. Keep this clip in this case.
Okay.
This is our one step further take segment.
Yeah.
So, Ohio State by 30.
Rapid fire turd pile picks. Thank you for providing that segue. Michigan State at Rutgers. I'm honestly surprised Rutgers is only favored by 5.5. Winner gets a lifetime supply of Axe body spray. I got Rutgers.
Yeah, I got the Scarlet Knights here.
Yeah. UMass at Penn State. Talk about big spreads. 42.5.
Wow.
Might be low. Might not be low.
Yeah. Penn State.
Yeah. Illinois at Maryland. I'm surprised this one's only 14.5. I got Maryland.
Yeah, I got Maryland as well.
Iowa at Wisconsin. Wisconsin by 9.5. I got Wisconsin.
Yeah, I got Wisconsin.
On to the varsity games. Ohio State favored by 20 at Purdue.
Fun fact. Mm-hmm. Every single coach this century from Ohio State, except for Ryan Day, has lost a game at Purdue.
Oh, no. It's time.
Ohio State.
If Purdue still had a good offense, if they had a good offense and a bad defense, I think they'd have a better shot. But they have bad both.
Yeah.
So they're going to lose. Indiana at Michigan. The line went way back up for Michigan. Michigan's favored by 34. I got Michigan, and I got Michigan covering probably.
Yeah. I got Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oregon at Washington. Washington's favored by 3. I spent way too much time trying to figure out, trying to decide who to pick. I kept going back and forth. Honestly, I'm just going to go with Oregon. That's the only reason.
Yeah, I think this is I don't know. I'm assuming this wasn't in either of our top 5 games of the season, but if I redid that, I would put this game in the top 5. Oregon looked extremely good against Colorado. Washington's looked good all season. They blew out Michigan State. Obviously, that didn't mean much, but it's a huge game. But I like Oregon to win. How much did you pick them by?
3.
I have it in my notes by 3.
Guess you don't get the extra point this week.
I guess you don't get it either.
Yeah, that's fine.
I got Oregon by 4.
Okay. Really?
I'll make it. I'll leave it at 4. Because then if Washington wins, then you get the point. Sure, yeah.
Great.
Then I get the point Oregon wins by more than 4.
I appreciate that. Things no one is talking about. I can't believe that I have to be the one to hype this up. November 18th, 2023. A game that will shape the Big Ten East, cementing one of two teams as the absolute worst in the division, and somehow maybe the entire conference. The turdiest turd pile pick in the history of Scarlet and Maize. One team with an interim coach fighting to earn the full-time job. One team with a coach fighting to try to keep his full-time job. Michigan State heads to Bloomington, Indiana to take on the Hoosiers. I can't believe no one's talking about that.
My thing that no one is talking about is Michigan's O-line having 0 penalties through 5 games. That's crazy that nobody's talking about that.
That is crazy. Tweet of the week.
My tweet of the week is from Mr. Ohio himself, but he tweeted, if you compare similar opponents, Kyle McCord has more passing yards against Indiana, Notre Dame, and Maryland than C.J. Stroud had against the same teams last year. By a little less than 30 yards, but...
I'm a huge fan of C.J. Stroud playing for Ohio State, so I'm okay with this.
I mean, he's off to the best NFL start in the history of quarterbacks.
Oh, I don't care about that.
In the history of quarterbacks,
he's just lucky he didn't get drafted to like Chicago or
that's
Washington, like a cold state. Like he's in Houston.
Dude, that was. All I know is at this point in Tom Brady's career, he hadn't even started a game, and C.J. Stroud's out here breaking records. So
yeah. All right. My tweet of the week is ESPN's Bill Connolly said Michigan is first in SP Plus and J.J. McCarthy is first in total QBR, averaging 9.9 yards per dropback and 9.1 yards per carry. If he actually had to play four quarter games, he might be the Heisman frontrunner. In a response to Connolly, Todd Anson said, and knowing JJ, I'm certain he'd rather be winning and elevating his teammates than to be the Heisman frontrunner. I like JJ. Not just because he's a Michigan quarterback. That doesn't hurt. But
why do you like him then?
He's a team first guy.
Is he?
I think so.
You think so, or is he?
I mean, he's stayed at Michigan even though he hasn't passing a whole bunch. He stayed committed when Harbaugh was on the hot seat.
You think he comes back another year?
No, but I wish he would.
You really don't think he comes back another year?
No. He's getting projected as a first rounder.
Everybody's getting projected as a first rounder.
I would love for him to say that and to come back because right now I think they're going to start a transfer that they don't have right now next year.
Fun. Yikes.
With that, we'll see you next week. Go Blue.
Go Buckeyes.